Well, this Standing Stone Trail in Fulton County, Pennsylvania has yielded some very good specimens for me to video today. I've done the striped maple. I did the Table Mountain pine by itself a few minutes ago with a white pine in the background. White pine can wait. I can find that in a lot of places, and I'm going to hold off on that one. And I mentioned that the Table Mountain pine resembled the pitch pine from a distance. Well, I have found both of them right here on the trail. We've got some large mature trees, mature for these types of trees, growing right in the same grove. So that made it easy to really learn the subtleties between them, because it's very subtle. The color of the bark, I'm going to say, is almost identical. To my left here, as I'm panning left, is the Table Mountain pine with a, I'm going to say, kind of a bronzish, brownish, purplish hue. And right up the trail with the same, almost the same color, is the pitch pine. One thing I can see now that I've got them both in the same acreage here is the pitch pine bark, when it's the same size, the chunks or the blocks that you find in this bark, the cracks and the areas between the cracks, are more pronounced and probably smaller. They're about the size of my index finger, maybe the size of my hand, but lots of cracks with some blocks in between. There's one right up here. This tree is dead now. A lot of insect damage. I'm not sure of the actual insect that has bored into these pitch pines, but it has, and this tree is dead. It's got a dead crown there. The Table Mountain pines is the same hue, that purplish, reddish, brownish color, but the blocks and the chunks are not as pronounced and not as, they're actually probably larger, but they're not as deep. It's more flaky and less chunky. This one does have a few cracks in it here, but they're not as pronounced. So that is one way to tell the two trees apart. They both have little holes in them from insects boring in. I could try to find out what kind of creature that is. I don't know right now offhand. But I'm using that information, and I'm looking up at the length of the needles, which you can't see in this video, and the size of the cones to help me determine what I have found here. And just walking around this very small piece of land here, I have found, to my left, we've got a Table Mountain pine to my left, and on the left side of this tablet case here is the Table Mountain pine needles, which are about 2 inches long, come in pairs, sometimes in threes, with the sharply barbed ends of the cones. You see those cat's claws there. The pitch pine, which is to my right and is on the right side of my tablet case here, has much longer needles. They're 4 to 5 inches long. They come in threes instead of twos. I can try to pull one off. I think I have one here that's already been pulled off. So it's in threesomes instead of pairs, and much longer. You can see they're almost as long as this dollar bill. There we go. So the needles are longer and the cones are smaller. On average, they're smaller, but they don't have that cat's claw at the end of each part of the cone. So I've used the cones and the needles to help me learn the subtleties between the bark. Often that's the case. You see trees with very similar bark. You have to use other methods to figure out the subtleties between them, and then go back to learning them by the bark so you can bark up the right tree.